So YouTube Studios like finally magically fixed itself, so I might be able to actually look like vaguely more at the cameras than like. I know normally I'm like, or at least the last few streams, right? I've been looking right about here, where normally I'm looking kind of right about here. Although I have moved because I bought the new camera and some of those things, so I don't know. You guys, we'll figure it out. Long term though, I'm hoping to get rid of like this setup as it exists before that end of summer, as I get into fall, basically. I've been making a bunch of changes kind of all over the place, and you guys will start seeing some of that stuff. You actually probably saw it in the unboxing video, right? There's like a completely different shot, basically, that I'm working on. Just to do things a little differently. Sorry, my work phones. I have multiple because of I need them for testing. Are over here like buzzing their brains out. So hopefully you guys don't hear that. There's so many notifications coming through. It's probably like my team. I think my team in India is starting their day right now. So yeah, it's probably stuff from them. Anyway. Also, I kind of monkeyed with the new camera a little bit, so hopefully color looks a little better. When I look at it in my preview, it still like wigs me out. So I don't know. I'll figure that out long term. I gotta figure out how to get it tuned in so it doesn't look like off to me. But hopefully it looks better than it did in the past, because I played with it for like, I don't know, 15 minutes or so, trying to get it looking less like weird to my eyes. But maybe it's just my eyes, and you guys don't actually care. Who knows? Oh man. Okay, so I have I've been waiting to hear back from that company that produces that waterfall box. Like, I had an initial message to them, and then like they had a back and forth. They were basically trying to, like, I guess, gauge how much I expected to be paid, and I was like, just send me the thing. Just understand that, like, you don't get to influence what I say, and you don't get to preview the video. It goes live. Everybody gets to see it at once. That's my agreement with you. Then ghost. So I have a feeling maybe they're like, no, we don't like that. I don't know. We'll see. I have to probably ping them again, but I did a ton of work over the last few days, and so like I put out a short last night, this morning. I think it was last night. So you guys got to see some upgrades I did to the guppy tank. There's also some upgrades to the running river tank. That might be the most like significant that you're going to see. And I'll probably be putting up a post pretty soon specifically for members. You look blue, but I don't care. I wear a lot of blue, but I don't know. There's like, when I look at the preview in my broadcasting software, right, versus the preview that's over on YouTube, I have this weird like peach and green coloration, and I don't, it just wigs me out. And what I mean is to my skin tone, it just looks weird, even though I'm using like a fairly color accurate light and things like that. I don't know. I guess I just have to like not have actual daylight coming in through this window over here, and completely black the world out. I don't know, but yeah. So yeah, I'm working on a bunch of like little stuff, hopefully to get a few different upgrades. I did a bunch of work to fix a few things, set up some tanks for some extra filming projects, and also started getting toward my big like stock tote. So I just have to move it from where it is. I had to clear like a massive path basically to get to it, because I've let my yard get horrifically overgrown. Because I don't necessarily care about having like a nicely manicured yard. I'm that guy. And I have bunnies that live in my backyard, so I just like to, I jokingly call it my domestic game preserve. Because the bunnies and the birds actually like really like it. They visit my yard, and I don't care, because I'm not doing anything in my backyard right now. When I get to the point of where I'm doing something that matters, then I'll care about maintaining it significantly better. But it's just a bunch of overgrown grass at this point, and it's like, whatever. It should tell you like how I live my life. Like, overgrown plants don't bother me at all. It should be obvious if you look at like most of my tanks, where it's like, oh yeah, I probably should trim all of that. Nah, just let it do its thing. Let nature do its thing. Oh man. All right, I'll get on our topic because I think it's funny, and I hope you guys will have a good laugh with me. Sue, it is 93 degrees at 9 p.m. in New Jersey. Oof. That's why I don't live over there. No, it's supposed to get hotter here. It was hot like a couple weeks ago. We got into the 90s. I don't think we're supposed to hit our like super hot patch here relatively soon. At least for the Seattle area. Like, Seattle area typically does not get crazy hot for very long. There's like a 3-week period that does get pretty toasty for this area, but thankfully not too bad. All right, so I was doing some work, and some of my testing often involves using like AI agents. Right, I work for a particular company that has a social media platform. Starts with an F. But I work in some of their other like wearable products divisions, right? So like the Oculus is one of their wearable products. They've got the Meta Ray-Ban glasses that are out. Like, I work on those kind of things, that part of the side of the tech. And so one of the big things that is a selling point, feature, you pick the word you would prefer, is that there is an AI assistant that you can use in those devices. And so I had to do a bunch of testing of a very specific portion of that like AI feature. And I'm going to leave this as like generic at that point there. But basically, I had to keep the AI assistant responding to me and conversing with me for over 30 minutes at a time. And I had to do a couple iterations of this. So, I'm spending basically like 2 hours of my day just babbling with an AI agent. As you can imagine, that's going to lead to some interesting conversations potentially. Now, I'm not trying to do anything too nefarious with it. I'm not trying to like really bust the AI in any way, crazy shape or form, because the specific things I was searching for are more reliant on time than like tricking the AI agent, which is some of our testing too, right? Is to do crazy stuff and try to make outside of the box requests and make sure that the AI agent can handle that in any reasonable fashion. So I started asking some little things like, hey, what can I do in the current weather? And it would be like, oh, you could go on a hike and do this kind of stuff, right? I'm like, oh, what about, what's a really nice lake near me to visit? And, start playing with these kind of questions and stuff. So, Zen Ginger, I'll actually respond to that in a minute. But thank you. I'll actually give my bosses that feedback. But, so eventually I led myself down a path of it telling me, because like I started asking, okay, it picked a lake. I picked like 2 lakes, and I asked about this specific lake. And then I asked like, what kind of fishing can I do there? What kind of fish live in that lake? And then it, would tell me like, oh, it's like got bass and this stuff. And I'm like, oh, where can I go fish for steelhead? And then it would direct me to this other thing and be like, start asking questions about like, is most of the steelhead that's going to show up in this stream actually wild spawned, or is it influenced by hatcheries? Right? So I'm playing with this thing, and I'm kind of steering it in a direction. And eventually I start asking it questions about the running river rainbow fish, because it's me. Right, so I ask it after I've got down to this conservation alley of things. I think I was like 15 minutes into the conversation, or 10 minutes into the conversation with this agent the first time. And I'm slowly getting, I was like, oh, well, what kind of different conservation efforts were taken with the running river rainbow fish? I think is how I started that conversation after asking a bunch of stuff about various salmon species, because, small footnote to this conversation, one of the members of the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society works specifically in a salmon hatchery, and every spawning season he always gives me lots of updates, and will like sometimes send pictures or small videos of some of the all the spawns and how they're doing and how healthy they are and how many fish they're going to release. He does a program with local schools where they take school, like typically I think middle school or early high school kids out, and they get to participate in a part of the release events of releasing some of these young salmon into the local water systems, which I think is just super, super cool, right? These are the ones that are going to go out to ocean and come back hopefully the next year, that kind of stuff. So super cool, and he always gives me all these really cool updates. Really nice guy. And at the top of my head, his name is escaping me, which makes me feel horrible. It's life. You focus on so many things, you forget the other things, right? Anyway, because I was asking about those things, that's mostly because I know this club member, and he's always giving me these cool updates because I have a general interest in that kind of stuff, even though I would never like look at working in those fields because one, I'm not a scientist of any fashion, right? And two, I'm not that person that's going to go trampsing around in the streams and rivers and stuff like that. We'll leave that for folks like Alex over at Fishery, right? He loves doing that kind of stuff. So I started asking about rainbow fish. And I get it to tell me kind of enough about the Running River rainbow fish, but it starts telling me that the reason why the Running River rainbow fish went extinct in the wild is because of predation and ecological habitat change, which is not why it went extinct. So already we're finding something where it's using broader assumptions for other fish about why they've gone extinct in the wild rather than very specific findable information that exists on the internet. And so, of course, like one of the things I asked is like, how recent is your data set? Right? This is one of these fun things here. And it was like August of 2024. And I'm like, well, that's recent enough. You should know these things. So you didn't crawl it very well, or just the way that it's programmed. So I decided, okay, I'm going to start asking about semi-famous people. And the first question, and I think you guys are going to find this hilarious, and then we'll get into regular questions and answers and things like that. So I asked about, like, what can you tell me about Gary Lang? Right? Because, well, I'm asking about rainbow fish, and I had tethered through a couple of different species of rainbow fish down this, like, rabbit hole of conservation and things like that. And it goes, oh, Gary Lang is a well-known Australian fish keeper who is particularly known as the King of Rainbows. So I asked the AI, oh, Gary Lang is from Australia? Yes, Gary Lang is Australian. Is Gary Lang from the St. Louis area of Missouri? Yes, Gary Lang is from St. Louis, Missouri. I thought you said he was Australian. That got it in a loop for a while, where it kept saying, he's Australian. No, he's American. No, he's Australian. No, he's American. Which had me kind of sitting here, like, I'm sitting doing my work, and I'm just, like, laughing. It's probably a good thing I didn't have any coworkers around, because they would have looked at me like I was losing my mind more than usual. So then I go, okay, tell me about Peter Unmack. It's like, oh, Peter Unmack is an American ichthyologist who is known for doing research on rainbow fish. Okay, so Gary Lang is Australian, or maybe he's from St. Louis, or maybe he's Australian, but Peter Unmack is definitely American. And I go, okay, where does... And the AI did specify that he's a doctor, and I said, okay, where does he work? And it said, oh, he works for the University of Canberra, which that's correct, at least. And so I was like, where is the University of Canberra? In Australia. So Peter Unmack is an American that works in Australia. Yes. So then, of course, course, I go down this path and I ask it about like Johannes Graf, Wim Heemskerk, and who are other famous Australian rainbow fish people? And at least it tell me like Gerald Allen, so we got that one correct. And it named a couple of people that I know are all people who work at the University of Canberra that work with Peter Unmack that are all also Australian, like Peter Unmack is. So needless to say, my depth of knowledge in my like tiny niche hobby gave me a quite entertaining experience screwing with an AI and basically putting it in circles of dumb. And this does lead to, like several of you were saying, like, this is why AI terrifies me, dumbing down of society from Garage Gills. That people who rely on it so wholeheartedly to be absolutely perfectly accurate, yes, it's terrifying if you think about that. It's almost dystopian if you think about it like that. Especially because there is obvious biases that are being programmed into the different AI agents that are out there. Whether they're open source or not, if enough data is basically like rammed down the throat of the AI that is not accurate, the AI won't be able to separate that misinformation or incorrect answers from correct information. And then it causes like weird jumbles like I got onto where it's like, is Gary Lang from Australia? Yes. Is Gary Lang from St. Louis, Missouri? Yes. Which one is it? Right? Is he an American? Is he Australian? Yes. So anyway, that was like my way to like have some semblance of entertainment at my job while also still doing my work. So if you ever get an opportunity, and they want you to test, ever like screw around or like, here, you got to experience this AI and see how cool it is. Start asking it like niche fish questions, and it will like immediately become stupid. And it's hilarious how fast it can occur. And I think we did this, I did a video on this, I think a long time ago, where I asked an AI agent like how to breed rainbow fish. And it said that rainbow fish were like phenomenal parents and would raise their young and stuff like that. And it's like, no, they do not. They're way too stupid for that. They eat their own young. They don't know any better. They will literally fire eggs, spin around, and eat them all. Because there's no parental instincts with rainbow fish at all. It's kind of hilarious that that's the case. But anyway. So, with that being said, we can get into that. There's a couple comments that I want to go over, but if you guys have any questions, like, we'll do a completely open question and answer session. We can talk about silly, dumb AI things. You can ask me about random tech stuff if you really want to. It's not very fish related, but we can get into it. A couple other things. Like, so obviously I'm starting doing a lot of testing of the Aquasky 3. Actually, so far, very early, pretty impressed with it. Because there's a lot of extra features that have been added that let you do some really, really cool stuff. And I mentioned this a little bit in like the member Discord after I think Leo asked me like what did I think so far, and basically to say there will be a lot of stuff to cover when I do like my full review, and more importantly when I do like the next like Ultimate Guide series, because eventually I'll get the Plant 4.0 as well. I don't know if Fluval's going to send me the Pro version, which if you watched KG Tropicals, they opened the Pro version, which is basically like two Fluval Plant 4.0s like strapped together into this much wider basically bar of light as opposed to like kind of the thin strip that it is naturally. Which is kind of interesting. It's basically just giving you two lights in one like nicer distributed fixture. So we'll see. I think they're just sending me the Plant and the Aquasky. They might be sending me the Reef for some random reason. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I know it's the Plant and the Aquasky, because those are the two that, like, obviously I'm going to use the most. Put in quite a lot of testing. I have no clue what I would do with a Reef light, other than maybe give it away. Yeah. All right. So let me scroll up because there's a couple cool comments I want to get to, and then we will babble and babble and babble. So Zen Ginger, the Meta Ray-Ban glasses are fantastic, especially in the blind community. They've been a game changer for a lot of people in a really great way. Technology sometimes gets it right. So for those who might not think about it, there is a specific service called Be My Eyes that Ray-Ban, Meta's, and Meta in general has a partnership with for the glasses. So basically, you can through your calling, right? Because you can connect your phone to make your phone call, so you can hear it on the speakers that are in the glasses and things like that. And there's microphones and all that kind of stuff. You can call this service, and that service can access the camera in your glasses and describe things around you. Plus, there's also some other like AI tools that you can say, like, hey, what do you see? And if you have a specific mode engaged that's designed to help mostly blind people, which is a super descriptive, detailed response mode, it will really tell you a ton of information about the things that the camera can see, which is specifically designed to help people with any kind of visual impairment. So it's a really, really cool thing. I don't work on that portion. That service is like under a very specific team because it's very in-depth and it takes some specialized training and all that kind of stuff. I don't work on that portion, but it is a really cool service, and I've watched some live demos of some of the teams like demonstrating how it works and what makes it cool and all those kind of things. So that's something that I think is like inherently very, very neat. Zach, does your job require a lot of creativity? Seems like it. So when we're doing what we refer to as ad hoc work, which is where we're kind of not doing any structured work, yeah, being creative is really, really important. When you're doing things with like any kind of voice command or AI assistant or even like video processing when it comes to like machine learning, which is some other stuff I've done in the past, it really does help to take very creative outside of the box approaches when you're trying to specifically train those things to function better. So like my example would be at one point I was doing an interview for Microsoft's Cortana, right, which is their voice acted assistant that they had for quite a while. It was in Windows. And now they've got Copilot, I think is what they call it now. They used to have Cortana, now it's something else. Whatever. And as a part of the interview, they were like, so we need you to give like 10 questions that you would ask that are alternative ways to gather information. And I went, okay, does this thing have any access to a camera, right? Just so, is it going to be able to see what I can see in some way, shape, or form, or is it purely just information-based? They were like, just purely information-based. Okay. Do I need an umbrella today? Is today a good day to wear sandals? Should I wear shorts or pants? Should I wear a jacket today? And I just hammered. I think it was like 20 different questions, just weather related. And then I stopped and I go, would you like me to cover other topics beyond weather? And the interviewer was like, no, I don't think we need you to. That's, if you can do that much on just weather related, I think you're going to be fine. That's like, so some of that stuff can be really fun, right? Like being inherently a little creative in your thought processes and things like that is very, very helpful in my particular field. Because our job is to like think in the heads of other users and do things that in general the engineers don't necessarily think you should be doing. Because if I hand you a piece of technology, you're going to skip any tutorial you possibly can. You just want to use it. And you're going to do all sorts of stuff in different orders than any engineer ever thought you were going to do, because they're in their head, they're like, oh, of course a user is going to do it exactly as I designed it. No, not at all. Most users are going to do the opposite of how you designed it to be right away. So that's kind of like part of my job, is to step in the shoes of a person who's going to be using something and think, okay, engineers have designed it this way. How would a normal person go through and use this that is not the way that it's designed? And that's usually how we build a lot of our testing and things like that. But yeah, I love that kind of stuff. I love breaking things. It's very, very fun for me. Garage Gills. I volunteer for a same program here in North Carolina. I almost said North Carolina. NorCal. Northern California. I can read. It is such a great experience for the kids. They hatch and raise the eggs in the classroom and then release them. Oh, so they actually do some of the raising in the classroom in California. Most of the raising, to my understanding, if I remember correctly, in the program is done with the hatcheries, and then they bring them for like, they give them some updates, and then eventually when they're going to actually release them, at least the program that the person I know in my club is affiliated with. But yeah, super, super cool. I like that idea a lot. Had I had an opportunity to ever do that as a kid, I probably would have. Because it sounds fun. Is that Australian fish keeper? I think they meant Australian fish keeper. Yeah, no. The Meta AI really did think that Gary Lang was Australian and Peter Unmack was American. It was pretty great. It was a good laugh. Jeff C. AI is the king of confirmation bias. Oh, brother, you are so right on that. Because it can go down some really ugly rat holes fast. Oh, Lord. All right. We catch up a little bit. Okay. Uh-oh, Zenginger. Jeopardy even had a question that was parroting the inch per gallon rule last week. So if you're simply trusting one source, it's kind of your problem if you're misinformed. I think especially what I've noticed in the, like, Gen Z, so, like, brother-in-law James is Gen Z, right? He's significantly younger than I am. But what I've noticed a lot is that, and this even happens with people my age, if they're not, like, naturally inquisitive, which is that you'll read a headline, and based on the headline alone, you will make an assumption that that is 100% accurate, when 99 times out of 100, the actual truth is buried at the very bottom of the story, and the headline is purposely inflammatory or incorrect, whatever, just to get our dumb chimp brains to click on it, right? Because all they do is they care about is click farming and view farming, because they want to just slam you with as many ads as possible or whatever other BS, right? As opposed to getting to the point as early as possible. They want you to scroll through as much as you possibly can to get to the actual answer and what happened. So it's like, you get that, and we get that kind of in YouTube, right? You get that, you couldn't believe what this person said, and they're like, all right, it's a 12-minute video. I'm sure they'll tell me to start at like 2-3 minutes, and then finally get into the, like, analysis of it. And then it's just like a bunch of generic BS trying to string you along for as long as possible to reach their level of engagement or whatever ever bull that they care about in their metrics. And then eventually, like 8 minutes out of the 12-minute video, they finally say the thing they're saying, and it's not even what the stupid headline caught you for and all that kind of bullshit. Right? It's just one of those things that I think is the unfortunate part of current day media, because it's certainly not as straightforward as ye olden times media used to be. And a lot of that is just the attention span changes in most of society, and how social media has, like, warped all of our brains, blah, 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 blah. I won't go too deep into this because it's not fish related, and really, do we care that much? Let's be honest. I don't think we want to talk about that. It gets all depressing and dystopian, and we can talk about fun stuff like AI being idiots, or ways that conservation methods are trying to make it so that more and more fish survive and stuff like that, right? Just got to catch up with 2 times. Thanks, Gummy Girl. Oh, man. Garage Gills. Yes, we deliver the eggs. We must carry a permit with us. The teachers must prepare a cool and cycled tank. The kids keep journals on the egg and fish development. That is super cool. I'd probably lose my mind over that when I was a kid. I did have one teacher that had, like, a generic fish tank. It was like tetras and, and some guppies and, like, really basic fish, right? But mostly, not a lot of fish in general in the schools that I went through as I was growing up. But I always had fish at home for the longest time, so I got my fix there. Although one of my really good friends in his middle school. So for reference, the schools where I grew up, it was kindergarten through 6th grade, then 7th through 9th, then 10, 11, 12 as high school, right? So even though in 9th grade year, you're technically considered a part of United States high school, it was split down into the middle schools. That's just how the particular school district that I went through was set up. So a friend of mine in middle school, his dad was a fisheries biologist, and so he would like sometimes be gone at like the most random times because he'd have to hike out to some creek out in the middle of nowhere and do a bunch of like surveys and measurements and stuff like that. And he was like super fun to talk to because as someone who really liked fish as a kid, I could ask him all sorts of questions, and he was super, super, super informational. And like, the fact that I liked fish, like his son was kind of like mildly into fish and more into like things like snowboarding and stuff like that. And we all played video games together, which is how I really got to know them. And his dad was like deep down a super like video game nerd, which is I always thought was really cool, because my dad was not into video games at all, but my dad loved cars, and that rubbed off on me a lot. So, what do you do? Right? It's just, we all develop in weird, different ways. Amazon Research Center for Ornamental Fishes. Good to see you, Dr. Maz. But yeah, at this point, guys, if you have any questions, at Bentley Pasco, super easy for me to see them that way. Although chat is nice and chill tonight. It's not too rampant and crazy, so I should be able to pretty easily cover everything that comes in. Let me see here. I have to get back on track. I've shot a couple of things that are not Aquarium 911 related. We did the unboxing, and I'm working on some other stuff right now. But I'll be going back to kind of doing a bunch of Aquarium 911, and my goal is I'm hoping I can shoot somewhere between 3 and 4 videos every weekend and get it to a point of where I have enough time to edit those as well to where I can put out about 2 a week for a little while, because I want to catch up. I've had some people that emailed me like, I never heard back from you, and it's like, yeah, it's because I'm way behind. There's just so many of them. But yeah, I'm trying to do some extra stuff to help out in that regard, because I like helping people. And there will be something for all you members of chat, because quite a few of you in chat are members. There's going to be something I'm putting out here relatively soon that is specifically for members. Don't stress non-members. It is not any like video content. Okay, it's not a video. I'm not paywalling anything. We're not pulling like the Aquarium Co-op live streams that are members only or any of that nonsense. I would like to eventually be able to do like some kind of extra bonus thing for my members at some point, but not nothing too crazy, right? My goal for basically forever is that any of the content that is educational or equipment related, whatever, the usual stuff I do, will always be up for free to everyone at all times. Unless I get sued. Who knows? Seems like every other day I've got a different person who's a fan of one of 2 specific channels that wants to like jump down my throat for how wrong I am about X, Y, and Z. You guys can probably figure those ones out. Oh, man. Garage Gills. It's a giveaway. I just picked up a group of threadfin rainbows. Any thoughts and suggestions? So, in regards to threadfins, they, like any rainbow, like good swim space. So don't have, like, don't go doing, like, guppy grass as an example. Exclusive membership benefits include watching Bentley drink his favorite bourbon. Don't need that. Do we get to guess publicly? I mean, you can guess publicly. I don't think you'll guess it. I don't think you will. I mean, giveaways are close, but not specifically a giveaway, but sort of a giveaway. I'm not making sense, I know, but you're kind of close already with Garage Gills, in a sense. But basically, if you're a member, because of some of the work I'm doing in a bunch of tanks, I'm making some changes, and that might make some certain things that need to go away. And so I'll make some offers to a bunch of members as a thank you, just because so many of you have, for no extra benefit other than an icon by your name in chat and a few emotes, been members for a long time just because you love supporting my crazy butt and all the things I do. So it's my way to start saying thank you a little bit better, while I have a higher level of focus on trying to kind of make some alterations and changes around the way that I'm doing my process, not necessarily my content. Although upgrades to content is a goal, but basically there's a few things going on in my brain, in this like overused noodle that's inside this casing here. About just trying to make some changes because we talked about it last week, right? I've been doing this for like 6 years, and it's like, how can I make some meaningful changes and impact that is just doing more help, not necessarily like I must make more money, although by byproduct it might cause that to happen because more content equals more views and all that kind of usual BS, right? But we all know that like I'm the worst at monetizing my channel known to man. I don't even really actively ask people to subscribe all that much until like the tail end of a video, and half the time I forget to ask anyway. Because I love helping people or talking about fish stuff. I'm just a dope like that. Oh man. Jeff C, any advice? I'm setting up my first 4-foot tank. Kind of want to explore Discus. Any experience, advice with them, or should I just do rainbows? So, okay, my first question to you, Jeff, is this: what is your current like out of the tap water like? Because if you naturally have fairly hard water, that means you're going to have to do a lot of extra work to make sure you can provide the type of water that Discus like. Well, we're having some processing issues, of course. We'll try to ride this out, gang. Sorry. I can see my like broadcast software losing its mind right now. But hopefully it'll buffer back up and we'll be okay. Both my wife and I have been noticing some problems, and a lot of it has to do with like our internet, but we have an internet change coming soon. They said something around August, potentially early September. I'm finally supposed to get fiber in my neighborhood, which means that I'll have significantly more bandwidth power instead of Comcast and the ludicrously overpriced, terrible service that they provide. So when that comes in, that should change a bunch of things as far as just like, should never deal with random buffering nonsense like what just happened for a little bit. Hopefully you guys didn't get encountered by it too much. But anyway, back to that. So Discus, it depends on water. And Dr. Maz, who is a fantastic Discus person, loves Discus dearly, is giving some probably the most big advice is that a lot of people do not feed their Discus enough. They eat quite a lot of food, especially when they're young, to get that big like dinner plate size. And they really do need to be kept in higher temperatures. Most of the people I know that have been really successful with Discus keep them at like 83 plus. One guy who I knew was like a really high-end Discus breeder, he would keep his Discus like close to 90 degrees. I always thought that was like crazy, but it would just happen to be like the way that his process worked and the Discus he kept for raising them young and getting good size on them fast. That's what worked for him. I think he kept them at like 88 or something. It was like, to me it was insane because I keep rainbows and we're like, yeah, 74, 76 is nice. You start getting 80 and higher, that's like danger zone. Moderately hard 7.5 pH, had a lot of success with other South American cichlids. So several of the bigger South American cichlids and even some of the dwarfs are a little more tolerant, but there are like hard water Discus species. What is it? Stenker, right? Stenker Discus? I think that's the correct one. Someone will correct me in chat. But there are ones that are good for hard water, so you might look into that if you have moderately hard water to start. You might avoid wild-caught Discus, because they tend to like very, very soft water. So like the water that I have here in the Pacific Northwest that has like almost nothing in it is basically out of the tap, perfect for Discus. So that's where like Discus, for a long time, were very, very popular here because the water made it super easy to take care of them. You basically just had to run your tank hot enough and feed them plenty and have really good filtration. So if you get the right Discus, I think the big things are temperature and food, and then just good filtration and water changes. Good water quality really matters with them. They do not tolerate a bunch of junk in the water. So, plants can help with that quite a lot. if you get plants that can tolerate the temperature range and the things that you're doing with your tank. But I haven't kept a ton of Discus. I'm going off of most of the things I've learned from watching people that I know that are very, very good with Discus when I thought about getting back into them. And then I kept kind of keeping that information coming my way, despite the fact that I was like, nah, rainbow fish are my thing, right? And I diverged into the land of Australian and Papua New Guinean fish. And I've never looked back because I love those dumb fish. And then I love my farting loaches. Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. Oh, man. But hopefully that little bit of tidbit does help. There's lots of great Discus keepers out there with phenomenal information, whether that is other YouTube channels or just in general across the internet. There's a ton of them. I'm Steve. Hi, Steve. I finally took the plunge, and I've been running CO2 on my tank for about 2 weeks, and I feel like it's dialed in now. The thing I am struggling with is balancing my nutrients. Any tips? Well, so keep in mind, right, when we start injecting CO2, the way that we should think about it is that plants naturally need a certain amount of carbon, and now we're drastically increasing the amount of available carbon for them to grow, because carbon is the building block of life, right? So if they have significantly more carbon available, they're going to try and grow as much as possible. That's just the inherent nature of plants, right? So then what we have to do is dial up typically light and nutrition to go along with that, depending on the plants we're using. And that's where we can run into trouble. So the big question is, like, what kind of testing are you doing? Like, I would start testing more often, Steve, because if you're having this big increase, you've dialed that in. Regina Phillips, yes, Bentley, the Stendacar, is it Stend? I think it's Stendcar, right? I don't think it's Dakar or Dakar. I think it's Stendcar. Now that I see it written out, it's like refreshing in my brain, but we're thinking the same ones. Brendan Hardwater, really cool fish, and you keep them, even better. Regina keeps them. Ask Regina. But back on track with CO2, right? So one of the things we need to do is, I would say, start testing and start seeing if you use your normal fertilization regime, what were your levels before and what are they now? Because that should tell you, like, okay, usually the way that I look at it is if I am dosing, say, 2 times a week and I'm dosing a certain amount, now I'm adding CO2. And if I'm adding CO2 to a level that is going to give me like a green on a drop checker, I mentally say that I need to basically double the amount of fertilization. That's not 100% accurate, but that's the way that I like to think about it, because with that injected CO2, there's significantly more capability for growth because there's more available carbon to the plants, and thus they're going to chew through a lot more nutrients faster. So if I was previously dosing twice a week, I might start dosing 4 times a week. Or maybe I start with just dosing 3 times a week, like every other day, effectively speaking, and see how that's going. And if I'm still seeing some problems, like a little nutrient deficiency here, or plants getting a little thin and not as bushy as I want them to be, then maybe I cycle in extra ones until I slowly kind of dial that in. Tinker and play with it. Don't be afraid to test. Make sure you're still doing water changes, things like that, right? But that's kind of the approach I would take. I hope that kind of helps you out there, because it can be really tricky getting, like, first you'll get it dialed in and it seems like everything's going great, and then all of a sudden it seems like it's accelerating problems because things are trying to grow faster than they have the nutrients for, so their deficiencies show up faster and more aggressively, and that can be some very frustrating times. I'm doing testing of phosphates, nitrates, GH, and KH, and I have potassium and iron tests in the mail. There you go. Time to shill for Easy Green. I will shill for any fertilizer. Use the fertilizer you've been using. Don't use a specific one. If you like the Flourish line and you like buying 400 products and doing the most complicated regime necessary, but you're finding success with it, then keep doing it. If you use Easy Green or Nylock G or Tropica or like, there's like a billion of them out there, whichever one you are finding success with, don't steer away from it unless you are adding something slightly more complicated because you want to do something extra crazy. Some people love doing the extra crazy thing because it gives these like super dialed in, extra fanciful feelings to you, and may provide you significantly more success. Or they might just add so much layers of complication that it's hard to figure out what the problem is when you encounter the problem. Which is why I play the KISS method, right? Keep it simple, stupid. And usually stupid is me. I'm trying to do things as dumb as possible, because that way when problems occur, I can address them in very simple fashions and usually narrow down my problem very, very quickly. And part of that just has to do with the industry I work in, right? I like narrowing a problem down very fast so that the measure to fix it can be found and addressed quickly. So I do very dumbed down ways when I'm approaching a lot of my tanks. Which you guys have seen. Like almost every tank I've been, like, okay, there's some substrate, almost doesn't matter. Pick a fertilizer, almost doesn't matter. Dose it this way. Have some light. CO2 yes, CO2 no. Make these adjustments, right? That's it. Brain dead easy. Because that way, when I do encounter problems, it's usually a lot faster to fix them. Works for me, might not work for thee, right? One of those things. Always come with a caveat. If you have something that's working right now, don't change it because it's not the thing that I do. Do the thing that brings you success. And that sometimes will be the thing that I do, and sometimes it will absolutely not be the thing that I do. Because every tank is a little different, right? Fun stuff. Paul Soltero, I've been using Verizon Cellular 5G internet for over a year. So far, so good. Added bonus, the price is locked in for 5 years. That's not bad. Geek Boy Bentley is calling us all brain dead. No, sir. I'm saying that I use brain dead methods on purpose because I'm dumb. I do dumb stuff all the time. I love to joke that I work with some of the dumbest smart people in the world because I work in tech. Because you have all these people that are phenomenally intelligent, and sometimes they do the dumbest, simplest thing you could ever think of from a rational, practical mindset thing. And like they do that textbook super smart and fancy thing, and then you're like, from a pure street smarts kind of perspective, right? It's like, what are you doing? Don't be dumb. So I often lump myself into that category in that I do dumb stuff all the time because part of that is my job. I'm supposed to be dumb in my job. I'm supposed to do very dumb things to very smart stuff to watch it break because it's not anticipating the very dumb thing. This is part of life. Okay. So you said yes, love farting loaches as well, and then garage gills. My phallic farter is hilarious. I never thought I'd like a dojo, but it's a kick. I'm telling you, like, my wife, bless her heart, when I rescued our very first dojo loach, Danger Noodle, and I brought her home and got her in the tank and got all the other fish that she was with settled late at night, this crazy thing, and she wasn't even living with me at the time. This is early when we were dating. And she comes over, and she's looking at all the new fish. She's like, oh, these are pretty. There's like some white clouds and a few other things. And she's like, what is that, like, tentacle-faced penis monster? And so from there on out, our internal nickname for dojo loaches is Cthulhu-faced penis monster. Because we're deep down, we are like 12-year-old children. Phallic farter is a really good nickname. That's very strong. I'm going to be telling my wife that after we're done streaming because she'll get a hoot out of that one. But they're such interesting things. They love giving you heart attacks. Like we call her thickness, right? Our eldest girl in the current batch, she's kind of like turning into grandma a little bit. She's taking a lot of naps. She naps a lot more than the two boys that are in the tank that I adopted about a year ago. And it sometimes gives my wife a little bit of a heart attack because she'll like take a lot longer to wake up. She'll be sitting there, but it's like, you'll see her when she decides to wake up. She's like, swim. Every time it's like a little hysterical because you're like, please don't have passed on. Please don't have passed on. You won't float like that if you're passed on. You're still in kind of a weird curved sea thing, and you either go to the bottom or you go all the way up. And I'm pretty sure you're alive. I'm pretty sure I saw your gills move a little bit. 20 minutes later, after you're done freaking out, just wakes up, starts swimming around for a little while. Like, okay, she's okay. Stupid loaches. I remember for a while I had some yo-yo loaches in a tank, and I think I adopted them, and I'd never known at that point that a lot of the loaches will often just like sleep on their side, laying on the ground. So like I came into my fish room at night, and I had to grab something. I can't remember what it was, and I happened to look at my tank, and they're all right out in front of the tank, laying on their side, not moving at all. And I thought they were dead for a half second, and I had this panic moment because I just didn't know better at the time, or at least if I had heard about it would have been about probably clown loaches from watching like Aquarium Co-op, right? I'd forgotten in that moment. It's one of the two. I either didn't know or had forgot. And like, man, I had this moment of like pure panic. I'm like, oh my God, how are they all dead? I've only had it for like 4 days. What's going on? What's going on? And I come up to my tank and I'm just kind of looking at them doing this. I go to flick my lights on in my room so I can see better. And I don't want to turn the tank on, but just the ambient lights. I flick them on and they all like freak out and run away, and I'm like, what? I get on my phone and I'm like, loaches lay on sides, ? And like the first Google result is like, don't worry, your loaches aren't dead. Like, they're just weird and they'll give you heart attacks. Boots and cats. My yo-yo will sleep on her side, draped over a rock. Always makes me do a double take. We'll see Danger Noodle. We used to see Danger Noodle do that, and her thickness now does that all the time, where she's like in a C shape, bent over a piece of Java fern or a sponge filter or whatever she can find in there. And every time you're like, you okay? Yeah, I saw your gills move. It's all right. Oh man, Paul Sotero, Stendakar. Okay, I know Paul will have it right. Paul's never wrong. Paul, you should be a YouTuber. You know so much more about fish than I'll probably ever know. They went out of business, but Discus Hans used to sell those lines, but he lost the rights to sell them, and I don't know anyone who's selling them now. Doesn't Lord, the big guy in Florida, Corey's gone there. What's his freaking name? He's like a really big name in Discus. Lord. See, this is how you know, like, the Discus part of the hobby, I'm basically just so uneducated in. But there's a big farmer in Florida who does a lot of this. It's like Jack something, isn't it? Am I going, like, just completely crazy? Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. Watley! Thank you, Regina. Jack Watley. Wasn't he doing Stendakar Discus as well for quite a while? I thought he was keeping both. Because in Florida, right, their water's naturally hard. It's great for those Stendakar Discus. There's got to be other people that are keeping them. You know, there's got to be ways to get them. I'm sure it's not, like, impossible. Gabe Posada is my main guy, though, Zen Ginger. I don't know who Gabe Posada is, but I will trust you, Zenny. I'm sure if you're regularly buying from this person, or at least working with them, they're knowing. I'm going completely crazy. Am I taking crazy pills? That's pretty much how I feel. 12-year-old Loach? Wait. Oh, this, like, your yo-yo Loach is 12, Craig? That's dope, man. I can only hope that my dojos can live that long. I know that, like, their typical lifespan is somewhere between, like, 5 and 7 years in captivity. Gabe Posada owns Watley? Is that what we're saying? Oh, you have a clown that's that old. Yeah, clowns can get really old, and they get huge. I've seen, like, big adult clowns back when Corey had them for a while. Those things are monsters, man. And they're just big and dopey, which is wonderful. Lisa Hober of Super Cichlids has Hardwater Discus as well. Super Cichlids a great company. Those folks are so wonderful. I got to meet them at Triple Crown and sit and talk with them for a while. Or not Triple Crown, Keystone Clash. Keystone Clash. I think they might have been at Triple Crown too, but Keystone Clash, I actually sat and talked with them for quite a while. They're wonderful people. Absolutely wonderful. Anyway, I'm going to go back. There was a question I missed. Hold on. Gotta catch up here. Okay, first off, from Guppy Girl, thanks for the advice you gave on cyanobacteria. I've been having an outbreak in my 60-gallon heavily planted. I almost beat it by doing weekly water changes and dosing ADA nitrogen. Glad you're seeing some effect. That's what matters to me, right? There's so many ways to tackle a problem, and sometimes it's like the simplest way is the way that we ignore because we assume we need something that's more complex than that. In this case, what I'm talking about is like doing a light blackout for a while because cyanobacteria is really, really light dependent, things like that. But I'm glad you're having success. That's really all that matters in the end, right? Whatever method gives you success, that's the one, and stick to it. Stick to it. Talking about this. Discus from Hans. A lot of Discus conversation. I don't belong in those conversations. I'm bad at that stuff. Mark, hello, newly subscribed. Will you do a 4.0 Plant Pro mode setup, or is it the same as the 3.0? No. So I know from playing with the Aquasky 3.0, there's a bunch of extra features, and those will absolutely be in the Plant 4.0 as well. Plus, there's a few other things that I suspect the Plant 4.0 should be able to do beyond what the 3.0 can do. So we'll have a completely new set of videos specifically for both the Aquasky 3 and the Plant 4.0. So I'll do like full reviews of just like the good, the bad, the ugly kind of things. I don't really think there's any actual uglies when it comes to flu ball, unless you count for if you're in Australia and trying to afford them, because they're crazy expensive in Australia for some reason. But we'll do that, and we'll also do an ultimate guide where I'll go over new updated settings, because I'm already starting to play with a few settings. I've got some things rattling around the old brain case up here that I think will make it really fun and interesting. But yeah, lots of cool stuff, both auto mode and pro mode. I'll have settings for both. I'll walk over all the cool changes and benefits, where it matters, if there's anything that's worse, which I really doubt, honestly, just from what I did playing with an Aquasky over the weekend. I actually have an Aquasky like sitting right behind me. I could, in theory, light up this back wall with a bunch of colors and be silly, but we don't need that right now. We're not trying to be a gamer channel, right? We're a fish channel. We're straightforward and simple. But yeah, there's quite a few new features that have been added. So like a big example, right? The Aquasky originally Pro Mode would max out at 10 settings. Now you can do 12. It's not a huge difference, admittedly. It's not like the AI Primes where you can literally put something like every half hour or something like that. It's like crazy how many you can set in. But that little extra control is just that little extra control, right? But there's some other cool things you can do that I want to save for the video. I need them clicks, baby. I need them clicks. No, I'm kidding. The biggest thing, honestly, is you can program in some weather effects. So you can schedule. There's a little setting that says dynamic in the app, in the Fluvial Connect app, and you can schedule a weather effect. And you can pick a day and a time, and you can have it repeat. So if you were something that had like a fish that normally only spawns when you start getting stormy weather, you could program in lighting effects to simulate that stormy weather. And if you combine that with automatic water changes, right, you can bring in a bunch of cooler water and a water change that's going to simulate rainfall as far as what that does to the water system that those fish are coming from. And if you're simulating stormy light effects too for a short period of time, maybe you just really want your lights to mimic the way Florida is, where like if you're in Orlando, I swear like 5:30 to 6 p.m. every day on the dot like clockwork, there's a frickin' thunder and lightning storm and a downpour of death rain for like an hour, and then it just stops. And it goes back to sun and happiness out of nowhere. That was my experience, my one time going to Orlando, and I have friends that live in Florida, and they're like, yeah, that just happens like every day. What the fuck is this weather? But you can program that in. Camera's gonna look all messed up. I had a crash again. Hopefully I'm back. Hopefully you guys can see me for a brief second. We're kind of at the end of stream, but yeah. Fun times. Fun times. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully it'll catch up and you guys will see me in a second. We're toward the end of stream, so that's... I'm trying to investigate why this crash has started happening, because it came out of, like... It's only been happening the last couple weeks. And the last time I was looking into it, the, like, blue screen of death code, or a BSOD, that's for us Windows nerds, it was some kind of out-of-memory exception, and I'm trying to narrow down whether it's in my graphical driver memory or if it's in my RAM memory. I ran a couple of tests, and I didn't see anything immediately in my RAM. What's your hardware, specifically RAM, OS, and HDD? Do you run RCC, ECC? What do you mean by ECC? Sorry, brain is fried. This is like a crazy powerful rig. So it has 128 gigabytes of RAM. It's got a 3090 Ti in it. Founders Edition, which is probably where the problem's coming. ECC type RAM. So it's what, DDR4? No, I don't think it's an error correction specific RAM. So there's probably some stuff I need to do, but I'd say it's the RAM that is most designed to work with the Ryzen series CPUs, because this has a Ryzen 5950X in it. This is a crazy powerful rig. It's designed for me to do video editing at a high clip. But yeah, and a lot of desktops and laptops don't support that kind of RAM. Yeah, it's probably true. Error correction RAM is expendy stuff, but this has got a fairly good motherboard. I bought a lot of really high quality parts when I built this thing back when I worked at Amazon. So yeah, they're shooting space lasers at me. Old Vladimir Putin, he's coming for me. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out. I've been doing some stuff with some of the memory inspection tools that are built into Windows. I have a feeling that it's probably something going on in my graphics. And when I did some of the research earlier, it was basically like, completely uninstall all of this and reinstall it fresh. And I was like, okay. So I'll probably have to do that stuff. Yeah, this uses 2 NVMEs and an SSD. So it's got 3 different drives on it. This thing's kind of a monster. And it's supposed to have a couple of like larger mass HDDs in it for mass storage, but I got dumb and I left them in my other machine. The IT guy said reboot. Pretty much, yeah. Have you tried turning the computer off and turning it back on again? Have you unplugged the power cable and replugged it back in? Are you sure you're having an internet problem? Like that kind of stuff, right? But yeah, it is after the most recent Windows update, so hopefully whatever Windows is doing that's causing this exception to occur that did not previously occur, hopefully Microsoft has figured it out through their telemetry and starts addressing it, because otherwise I'm going to lose my S. I do have some friends at Microsoft. I guess I could contact them. They're totally not in the Windows group, but who knows? Anything Asus Gigabyte has major updates being rolled out due to software vulnerabilities. Well, it's firmware vulnerabilities specifically, right? These are things all the way at a level of like a BIOS level that have some problems in the case of some of the Asus stuff. And Gigabyte is backed off of the same thing that the Asus drivers are using. I'm familiar with what you're talking about. Yeah, it's some scary actually, this thing's due to go in. I've got a local computer guy that I take it to make my life easier when it comes to my kind of like every 6 months-ish maintenance on my machines, mostly because I'm just working too much. So this thing's basically due for its usual maintenance. He updates like every driver firmware known to man, gives it a big old clean in, redoes the thermal paste, all that kind of stuff. He's a freaking wizard. So I'll probably be taking this thing in relatively soon because it's about due. And we're at the hot times, which this thing's already like a portable heater, so it probably needs a cleaning. Anyway, gang, I want to thank you guys so much. I was kind of talking on some CO2 stuff. Hopefully we got enough of that addressed and we got the basics there. I'm going to make sure I'm not missing something extra. just to make sure. Did your loaches ever fin snap you? Bubble saying gotcha. Most of mine, like, love to just come up, and every time I try to put my hand in a tank to work on something, they just, like, immediately they start loaching my arms or my hands or my fingers, and it's like I get that little surprise every time because it's such a kind of a weirdish feeling, right? Because you got those little barbels up front, a little slimy fish thing going on. It's like, yeah, oh, stupid loaches. But, you know, I love them. They're so fun. Yeah, Mark, I hope I have answered your question too. Yes, videos will be coming for both the Plant 4.0 once it shows up and the Aquasky 3.0, which I have the Aquasky 3.0 now. I'm doing a lot of my testing. I'm playing with it some. It's going on some tanks, stuff like that. So we should have that video. I don't know that I need to, like, really go as in-depth as I did in the past because there's enough similarities and not enough significant hardware differences to where I need to, like, try to beat it over the head too much. But there are a few things that I want to test, and those will require a couple of weeks being on a tank. So I would say probably something like mid or end of August. I'll start putting out some bigger videos on those, like the ultimate guide and the full review. Should be about that kind of time frame. Hopefully that works for you. But yeah, be on the lookout. They're coming. It'll start with the Aquasky because that's what I have right now. There's a plant that's supposed to make its way to me relatively soon, and then I'll do the same thing with the 4.0 plant. Massive earthquake in Russia, 8.0 magnitude. Really? Wow, that's kind of terrifying. 8.0 is not messing around. So you're expecting some... I'm assuming you're expecting some kind of potential issues on the West Coast, weather-wise. Yeah. Anyway, gang, I want to thank you all so much for being here. Bearing with Crash 2 weeks in a row. It sucks. Now my camera's all whacked out, but we'll be back here. Hopefully, it was close to 8.8. Holy God, that is terrifying. That's really terrifying because I don't know if they're built to handle earthquakes over there, like say like California, right, where so much of the infrastructure is designed to tolerate a certain amount of earthquake. Once you get over like 8 magnitude, like nothing really is built to tolerate that. But yeah, that's scary. You know, say what you will, but like the average person in Russia is not the Russian government, and thus I don't want anyone to be hurt, and that sucks. Anyway, gang, I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your week. Got some more videos coming. Going to be trying to do some big catch-up and some batch filming of Aquarium 911s. We'll get hopefully more of those very, very soon. And some other stuff will be coming relatively soon. Some stuff I'm doing. Members, be on the lookout for the community tab. Blah, 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 blah. As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching. And stay awesome. Stupid Windows crashing my machine.